to the Ground Zero Podcast.
Welcome to the Ground Zero Podcast. This is the first episode of season 2, and we're really excited to bring this one to you. This is also our first attempt at doing video, so have some grace for us on that. But we felt like if we're going to interview people, we've got a special guest today, and if we're going to interview people that you guys would probably like to see who we're talking to, so you don't have to guess at it. But we've got my brother-in-law, Cooper Smith, as normal. How are you doing?
I'm good.
All right.
Glad to be here.
All right. So we're going to talk about Cooper here in just a few minutes, a little bit. It's going to be good. But our special guest today, we've got Mr. John Salter. How are you doing today?
Good. How are you guys doing?
Doing awesome, man. Awesome. So for those of you who don't know John, I'm going to do what any awesome interviewee would do. And, I went on Wikipedia, to get my information because I'm
As
good.
Michael Scott said, it's right because anybody can put anything on there.
That's right. I always say that I'm a French model because you can, believe anything that's on the internet. But just to give you guys an idea of who John is, and I don't want to get too much into this because we're going to get into some really cool, deep things today. But John's like a local legend here in Wilmington. The one and only John Salter, owner of Salty Dog Jiu-Jitsu and Port City MMA Fitness.
Yeah, MMA and fitness.
MMA and
I always
fitness.
forget about the and fitness part. I never say it.
Well, I could come if it said MMA. I couldn't come if it said fitness because I can't. I'm not very fit. I couldn't do the MMA part either, so I don't know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, you could. But you should see some of the
I did it once, and it wasn't a good look for me. Anyway, so yeah, John, he owns the gym locally, but he's also been a fighter in Bellator, is what most of you guys would remember seeing him in, fighting in Bellator as a middleweight. But he's had a long, illustrious career in the fight game and the grappling game. But most importantly to us, John is just a stand-up dude. He loves the Lord, Christian guy, and he represents Christ in the best way at all levels. And we love that about him. John, you're also a realtor?
I am, yep.
Okay.
Well, I appreciate all that.
Yeah.
You like how he did the introduction, or I might have introduced you a little differently?
Yeah. Well, you got something different for Coop.
Well, go ahead then. Why don't you share us a little bit of your relationship with
First
John.
of all, I'm sitting between you two, and it's like I'm sitting between my two older brothers, so I'm a little bit nervous about that. I feel like I might need to be on guard the whole time. But yeah, obviously, meeting John and just having somebody else in my life that's like had a spiritual background and some guidance, man. Like I'm gonna get emotional.
That's all right.
And just like being brothers with you has been one of the great joys of my life, man. So it's just this is really cool to sit here and be able to do this.
Yeah.
So
yeah, for sure.
That. Yeah, man.
Sure. Yeah, we've Cooper has shouted out your name a few times in the podcast as he shared his story. So we wanted to get you on the podcast for sure. So let's look at some of this stuff that we've got on Wikipedia. It says that you started competing. You started wrestling at 12.
Yep. My dad, he never wrestled, but my dad's best friend in high school was the first ever 4-time state champ in Alabama. So my dad talked about that a lot. And that guy's little brother was the second 4-time state champ ever in Alabama. And his son was my best friend. So it's kind of worked out kind of cool. But anyway, so I always knew I wanted to wrestle, but there's nowhere to wrestle around where I lived until you got into middle school. So that was my first opportunity. And my first wrestling coach was Willie Wyatt, who played at the University of Alabama for football and then played at Tampa Bay. So it's kind of a cool coach to have. He was a heavyweight, so he didn't teach a whole lot of stuff for smaller guys, but was a really cool coach and just a neat guy as a 12-year-old to say, man, that's my wrestling coach.
Yeah,
really
for sure.
Cool,
Awesome. Amazing. All right, this is going to be good. We can go down the list. So, straight from 12 years old, he then, in 2007, about 5 years later, won the NAIA National Wrestling Championship at 174 pounds.
Yeah, so I my junior or my sophomore year of high school, took second state. Junior year, I won state. My senior year, I was ranked number 1 all year, but the guy, the weight class below me, was the number 1 guy in the country. He bumped up because our teams were really close on who was going to win. So he bumped up, beat me in the state finals. So I took second again, went wrestled in college, and then in 2007 I won a national title in college, and that was I redshirted, so that was kind of my junior year of wrestling. But I graduated college that year, so kind of weighed back and forth whether or not I was going to go back and wrestle, and then I just finally decided to get into MMA then and not wrestle my last year.
Sure. Okay. Well, I feel like Wikipedia's got it pretty good, so I think I can go off script there. We know that you fought in the UFC briefly. You fought with Strikeforce.
Yeah.
Armageddon.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know what that is.
So Armageddon, that was a really cool, probably one of the coolest events I was a part of. It was like a Canadian league.
Okay.
And I fought Caleb Starnes, who had been in the UFC for a long time, really tough guy. And Armageddon's a really cool event. They did it right off the coast of Vancouver in this island called Victoria. Beautiful. It's where they filmed the X-Men mansion. That's where that is.
Oh, okay. Wow.
But it was just a really cool place. I really want to go back there and fight again. And anyway, I won the title there. I beat Caleb Starnes, won the title. And then I kept messaging my manager, when are they going to want me back? I got to go defend the title. There's a company that sponsored me up there that's like, next time you come, we'll take you deep sea fishing.
Oh, wow.
It's good incentive.
Priorities. Priorities.
And they got a lot of halibut fishing up there, So I really wanted to go back and fight there again. And nothing happened. And then years later, the guy he wasn't the owner, but he was worked for the company, contacted me and was like, why did you never come back and fight again? And I was like, well, I wanted to come back and fight again.
Right.
And they're like, we offered your manager fights and he kept turning them down.
No way.
And I don't know the whole story. I know one of the guys they offered, my manager also managed. So I guess he didn't want that to work that way. But they, for that time, they paid pretty well. And it was such a cool event and place. I really want to go back. I was so upset, but I'd already fired that manager, so it was kind of too late to do anything about it,
Man.
And then they ended up becoming the World Series of Fighting, and now that's PFL.
Okay.
Dang, that's cool.
All right.
So just to go back a little bit, I know obviously your amateur career and your pro career, and that's around the same time you met Lindsay. What was it like getting the call from the UFC?
So Lindsay and I was 3-0 as a pro when Lindsay and I met, and then she went to my fourth pro fight with me. I won that, blew my knee out in the first round, ended up submitting the guy, and so my knee was pretty messed up, but I'm very lucky I got to go to anybody that keeps up with a lot of good sports doctors. Dr. Andrews out of Alabama, which is the Andrews group. Everybody goes to him. So I went to their group, and they looked at my knee, like, yeah, you tore your PCL, partially tore your LCL, but they said, I don't really think surgery is the right route. I think, it's going to heal to a point that would be as good as surgery, and then you don't have to go through the whole process of surgery and everything. So I thought they were wrong for a couple of months because I'm like, I can't walk on it. I'll never do jiu-jitsu the same. And then one day it was just better. And, but it would still get hurt in practice some. And I was trying to get a fight. And my coach said, he's like, no, I don't want you in the gym. You got to take some time off. I was like, all right, that sounds good. I was in the middle of wrestling season, coaching wrestling. Anyway, so it's like, all right, I'll do that. So I'd wrestle with some high school kids here and there, but nothing much. And then I got a call. And Lindsay and I were sitting down to watch a movie, and it was at night. And they're like, hey, what are you doing next weekend? And I was like, I don't know. I got no plans. Like, well, the UFC wants you to fight for them in 6 days.
Oh, wow.
I was like, oh, great. I've been told not to come train. And now I got to fight in 6 days. So,
Yikes.
At the time, now there's so many routes to the UFC. There's so many people in the UFC. You got guys with records that you go, how'd they get there? And it's just there's a lot more people there, so there's a lot more diversity of skill levels and stuff. But at the time, the UFC was small. I mean, it was a big organization, but it was very few people fighting in it. So if you get a shot, you take it. There's very few routes, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
There was the Ultimate Fighter, and there was the hope you beat somebody with a big name.
Right.
And that's what I had done. My first 4 pro fights, 3 of the guys had been in the UFC, so or fought for the UFC. So that's kind of how I was able to get on the radar. But I took it, and because like I said, you can't turn it down,
right?
You know? And I fought Gerald Harris, who he was I think 2 or 3-time Division I qualifier for Cleveland State. So he's a good wrestler. Most of his fights in the UFC, he got knocked out of the night, so he hit super hard. And we go out there. I'm like, all right, I gotta, this is big time. People are gonna be watching this. I gotta look good. And the first punch he hit me with, he knocked my mouthpiece out.
Oh gosh!
I was just standing there. The ref stopped it to go pick up my mouthpiece and get back to him. I was like, "This is so embarrassing." And it's like, all right, I don't know, and at the time he was a southpaw. I'm a southpaw. I'd never fought a southpaw.
Right.
All my sparring partners were right-handed, so I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna fight. I'm just gonna go. And so I just kind of ran at him, throwing punches. I beat him up in the first round, knocked him down. And then in the second round, I was feeling pretty good. I was kind of doing the same thing. And then I looked up at the clock because I was like, all right, this round's got to almost be over. And only 45 seconds to go by.
Oh, my gosh.
I know you know that feeling.
Yeah, the first time me and you ever grappled.
And I was like, and that's when it hit me. Like, there's no way. I can't do this for another 2 rounds. And so I survived that round. It was kind of back and forth. And then in the third round, I was just, I don't even know what my corner was saying to me. I was, you get to that point, you don't even know what's going on around you. Oof. And I just told myself, like, all right, I'm going to go out there. I'm going to try with everything I have to take him down. If I can take him down, I've got a shot. If I don't, I'm in big trouble. And I took him down. And when he hit, I was like, oh, thank goodness. And then he just rolled me over. And so he ended up getting a TKO win. So I lost that one, but it was a whirlwind of a week and a terrible feeling in the second round when I looked up and there was 4 minutes and 15 seconds left.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Well, that just also, I feel like, goes to show like the perseverance that you've had over your career, is going from the UFC, then going back to fighting like Armageddon, and then getting the call up to Bellator, and like never really letting anything shake you up, and the multiple surgeries like with your neck and your knee.
Yeah.
And then just a fun fact that me and you have talked about that I feel like a lot of people don't know is at one point you had to spar Deontay Wilder.
Yeah, that was very early in my career, and
he didn't lay that stick on you, did he?
Oh, he hit so hard.
So for people that don't know, Deontay Wilder is the Bronze Bomber, one of the best boxers in the world.
So at the time, he had just taken third in the Olympics, and I think he had maybe. It had to be 3 pro fights because he took his first 3 pro fights were in 3 weeks. And so JD's, who was his coach, and great guy, really good boxing coach, can't say enough about him, kind of knew the guy that I was working with as a coach at the time. And Jay came in and was like, yeah, just come, told me and my buddy Chris Davis, you guys just come train at the gym. We'll take care of you. So me and Chris were going there like 2 days a week. And Deontay had come in with him one time, and I thought, God, that's a huge man,
Right.
He's like, I think he's 6'7", something like that.
Yeah.
Large.
And anyway, so
like LeBron, basically.
Yeah. So we would go, and they had several pro boxers, and most of the time we would just spar the other pros. But then for a little while, Deontay had a fight coming up, and oh my gosh, there's. Every punch he throws, he should apologize for it. And, it's one of those things like, I can't wrestle him. I can't do anything that I'm good at.
Right.
And at the time, I mean, he's the best, second best boxer in the world right now, But at the time, especially, like, I had very little boxing experience. Everything I was doing was wrestling and jiu-jitsu, and I couldn't really tell how many times he would hit me, like, he made noises 3 times. So I'm pretty sure he hit me 3 times.
Yeah.
And,
oh, my gosh.
It was just terrible. And me and my buddy Chris Davis, we would like switch out rounds on him. And, Jay would be like, go hit the bag this round, come back in. I'm not doing anything. I'm just going to sit here and try to recover my brain.
Right.
Yeah.
And then I'll come back in. But all I ever wanted to do is shoot on him so bad.
Right.
Yeah.
But, God,
Those are long legs too. You got a good target.
yeah. But you can't even, like, if you're not over 6'5", how do you even reach him? I think he's got a crazy reach for a guy with 6'7".
Right.
But he'd hit you from across the ring, And the only time I ever saw him move is when he was faking a punch,
Right.
When he throws it, you just feel it. But that was some days I don't want to go back to.
Yeah.
Wow.
Cool story nonetheless. Goodness gracious.
Well, one of the things that really strikes me about your career, and I'm not really, you train with him, and you guys are definitely more in the fight game than I am. But looking as a fan from the outside looking in, one of the things that impresses me so much is especially in Bellator, like so often you were the underdog, and people were counting you out, or even when you weren't the underdog, people made it out like you were the underdog. That seemed to happen a lot. And where'd you get the strength to go into those arenas with the confidence you do?
Well, I think I always thought of like growing up wrestling in Alabama as like just so much that was almost a curse for wrestling because nobody thinks of great wrestling out of Alabama. So everywhere you go, go to wrestling in college, I'm like, well, that guy, he's a state champ from Alabama, but he won't be here long, And so it was always kind of that way. And then when I turned pro, or not even pro, when I started fighting as an amateur, I guess there was no commission in Alabama, so I can't get anybody in trouble right now. And I won't say the event, but my second fight as an amateur, my opponent, I don't remember the guy's name I was supposed to fight, but I just remember everybody being like, this guy's terrible, you're going to kill him. I'm like, okay, well, that's fine. And then he pulled out. Well, there was another guy, a pro fight that was supposed to happen, and one of the guys pulled out. Well, the other guy was my weight. He was 9-0. He'd never been out of the first round. Now, all of his fights were in Alabama, so it's not like he was like some superstar. But, at the time, like this guy's 9-0. He wins by triangle and armbar all the time. But I felt like he kind of talked down to me one time, and they said, well, you want to do an exhibition match and fight him? Which now you definitely couldn't do that because no commission would be okay with a guy with one amateur fighting a guy like that, I was like, absolutely, I want to fight this guy. So I fought him. I beat him up for 3 rounds, and I just sat in his guard and hammer fisted him as hard as I could for 3 rounds. And his eyes were swollen shut at the end. But anyway, in the region, like I would say the Southeast region, he was somewhat known. Mm-hmm. So then getting fights was almost impossible at an amateur level. And I was trying to get like 5 to 7 amateur fights. So then I ended up the rest of my amateur career just going wherever they get me a fight. And then as a pro, the same thing. I couldn't get pro fights for a long time. So I was just going wherever. Usually people get their pro debut against either an 0-1 guy or an 0-0 guy. When I made my pro debut, it was against a 3-1 guy. It's like every time I fought, I was going to be the guy that was supposed to go get beat up because I was going to somebody's hometown, So I just kind of did that my whole career. Like it just always another one, Jim Hammertree, he was on the Ultimate Fighter, but he was already going to be on the next season of the Ultimate Fighter. He was 6-0 with 6 knockouts, and I was 2-0. This was when I was a pro, and he's from Florida. We fought in Daphne, Alabama, which is right across the border from his hometown. And I remember going to the event, and this was so long ago in MMA that they didn't provide you gloves. You brought your own gloves. And so I had a pair of anybody that's been fighting for a long time, kickskin gloves, which should definitely be illegal. It's like a brick on your hand. And I asked, I was like, is it okay if I wear these? And they were like, well, Jim would have to agree, but I don't think he's going to care. And they kind of laughed because he was supposed to knock me out.
Right.
He's going to be an Ultimate Fighter in like a month or so. And like the whole time we were there, I was the joke. Like for the organization, you could tell they were just like, this guy's coming to do this. I did not wear the kickskin gloves. Conscious got the better of me, and I wore regular gloves. But anyway, and I ended up beating him. And then he went on the Ultimate Fighter and tried to say he was undefeated.
Wow.
After I beat him with an armbar. So that really bothered me.
Yeah, I can only imagine.
Wow. So you just recently retired.
Yeah.
This long, illustrious career. I guess you still have the record for submissions in Bellator, though, right?
So they said, I'm trying to remember exactly what the stat was. There's some record that I think I'm tied for.
Okay.
In Bellator, I can't remember exactly what the stat is. I think it might be submissions, like percentage-wise submissions of fights.
Gotcha.
Like that.
Awesome.
I know at one time I was tied for the most rear naked chokes in Bellator.
Okay.
And they were like talking about how good my rear naked, like everybody was interviewing me, like, how good your rear naked choke? It's like, I never get that in the gym.
Yeah,
I don't even go for it in the gym. I don't know how I ever get it in fights.
Right.
Those were always my favorite fights in the first round. When you were doing the rear naked choke, I was like, oh, thank God, this is over.
I don't know how that always happens because in the gym I just burn my arms out trying to do it, so I don't even try for it.
Yeah. Right.
But in fights, it's for a while there, it was like every fight I was getting rear naked choke.
Yeah. Now, in your last fight, I know I watched some interviews and some things, and I watched the fight, which we were Cooper and I are texting back and forth the whole time because we're emotionally invested in it. But the fans weren't real happy with the way that fight was going.
No.
And sometimes it's like you're watching it and you're hearing these people boo, and you're thinking, I get it, but I don't know if you understand what's going on out there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, I know I'm talking a lot, so sorry, but
Oh, you're good.
it drives me nuts in that scenario. Now, there's times like, okay, it's just a boring fight,
Right.
But in that scenario, I know a lot of people were upset because I was a 4-1 underdog, so people had a lot of money on him.
Sure.
People put that in their parlays, so that really screws stuff up. But in my opinion,
I had you in round 3. So I didn't make any. You won, but I didn't make any money.
But in my opinion, if I'm dominating you and I give you a way to move, like he's really good at getting up to his elbow. I know this is really technical. He's really good at getting up to his elbow, getting up to his hands, getting up. That's what he does. He's beat a lot of really good wrestlers doing that. Nobody can hold him down because he does that, right? Well, I saw that. Like, well, I'm not going to let that happen. So I kept picking his elbow up. And now he's got the option to turn the other way and get up. He never would do it. I'm going to take his back if he goes that way. But he wouldn't do it. And then in the third round, I took his back. I'm like, all right, he's going to jump back and slam me to try and get away. And then I'll try to submit him. And he just stood there and let me win the fight. Like, I just made the decision in that third round. Like, I'm winning by 2 rounds. If you're not going to try to win, I'm just going to sit here and relax. You know? So I kind of feel like it's on the losing. If we're playing football and Alabama, the greatest college team of all time. If Alabama's up by 3 points and the other team is trying to run it up the gut and not go anywhere, why would Alabama take any risk?
Right, sure.
It just makes no sense to me.
Yeah, for
so
sure.
I know people were really upset about it, but I kind of felt like they should have been more upset with him.
Right. Because he wasn't doing anything to advance or to change the situation either.
No, he did the exact same thing for 3 rounds.
He was waiting for you to tire out.
Yeah. And I beat him for 3 rounds, and he never went to the well and tried something else. Now, I think from what I hear, he trains at Kill Cliff MMA, and I think that he's been very dominant there at getting up and not getting taken down. So I think he just didn't have a plan B.
Sure.
'Cause I don't think he expected that. And that makes sense, but, I went in with a couple of game plans, and the first one kind of worked, and he never did anything to change that. So I'm going to stick with it.
I was just glad you went out on top. I didn't care what it
me
looked
too.
like.
Me too, buddy.
Me too.
I know me and Mariah were watching it, and I was just like, this is the last one. I'm not going to have to feel like I'm going to throw up anymore when you're about to walk out there and fight. Oh, gosh. I don't know who was more excited about you retiring, me or you. Very selfishly, man. I loved watching you win, of course, but it's weird, right, when one of your best friends is out there and you're watching them on TV, and of course, it's amazing, right? Mm-hmm. But then at the same time, you're watching, when I watch you walk out and stuff, I'm pacing back and forth. I can't ever sit down during the fight. I'm just like, this is so bad right now.
Oh, it's awful. I feel that way when I corner people.
Yeah, I bet.
It's like I'm excited for them, and then we walk, and I'm like, oh gosh, I'm gonna throw up. And, they're winning 2 rounds to none, and in my mind, what if they put their hands down and get knocked out?
Right.
I see them train every day. I know they're not gonna do that, but
right.
in my mind, I keep thinking that's gonna happen.
Right, right. Well, that's what's so weird about MMA too. Is any given time something weird could happen, and next thing you know, it's worst case scenario.
Yeah.
So you always got that in the back of your mind.
Yeah, for sure. So you threw the gloves down.
Yeah.
And you were kind of emotional. I know we were all emotional watching you, but what was that moment like, knowing this is it? I'm sure there was a little bit of relief.
Yeah.
But what was that like?
I was just really pumped to be able to go out on top,
Yeah.
And the other thing is, I know a lot of people, this is my last fight. Let me fight somebody that's a favorable matchup and all that, and everything. And that was kind of what I always thought I would ask for. But to get to do it against somebody who's
a good
contender,
fighter,
that's coming up and that will probably fight for the title one day, that was cool to get to do it against him, and I know a lot of people will say, like, well, you beat him, why retire? You're still at the top. But when I went to lay my gloves down, as I was going down, my back caught and I couldn't bend over anymore. And I just tossed them, and then they didn't look right. They fell apart. You're supposed to put them together,
right?
And everything. But my back locked up as I was doing it. I'm like, yep, this is the right decision. But
instant confirmation.
I mean, you're not 40 yet, but that's like 40-year-old disease. I just did something very simple and it hurt. I don't understand why.
But that's the thing. I think you get very few times. If you're blessed, you get a few times in life that is kind of like the ending of a movie or something,
Sure.
where it's all happily ever after type stuff, and I think that was one of those. And I couldn't have asked for it to be any better, especially I walked over and told Lindsay to come into the cage. She's always sitting cage side. And Michael Johnson, great guy for Bellator, but he kind of controls what goes on in there, and he's like, no. And I was like, it's my last fight. Please let her come in. And he's like, okay, she can come in.
Yeah.
So, to have, and then Barnheiser, he's in my corner. I've been training with him since 2010, and been one of my best friends since then. He lives in Nashville, so we see each other when I fight pretty much, or when I'm getting ready for a fight. And then Corey Crumpler, who's been my main training partner since I moved to Wilmington, so we've been training together for 8 years, and he goes to all my fights, so to have them there. Normally Jeff Jimmo would have been there, but we had a little bit of issues with the commission. Well, really with tickets and stuff, but anyway, so he wasn't there, and I love Jeff. He's a great coach. And he's been in my corner a lot, and I owe a lot to him, but it was still kind of cool to have the original guys there that I've been with for so long. And then Lindsay. So it was kind of just a throwback to, 8 years ago, 10 years ago, and it was just kind of everything about the way it works was perfect. And then since it was in Southern California, my friends from Fresno, who I started training with in 2012, they came down. So then afterwards to celebrate with guys that, I'd trained with 11 years ago. It's just really, really great ending to a long career. And I know there's, achievements that I didn't reach, but I think there's always going to be that.
Sure.
But I'm pretty happy with everything that that's happened, and to go out on that kind of win and that kind of weekend, it just couldn't have been better.
Yeah. Well, you went out with honor, which is something we talk about a lot. It's really important. I mean, you went out, on your shield, you fought hard and all that, but I mean, one of the best things about you is you did it the right way, in my opinion, and I would always watch, and after a fight, usually after you choke somebody out, you go over to say something to them, whisper in there. I don't know if you try to pray with them or what. I don't know what all you're trying to say. And most people would be really receiving of that. Some guys, like your last fight, he was like,
Yeah. It is amazing after you beat somebody up. Very rarely do they say you can't pray with them.
Yeah.
Brandon Halsey's probably one of the biggest jerks I've ever fought. And really to me, he hasn't been, because I'll tell you why. But from everybody else, he's apparently just a big jerk. But after we fought, I said, "Hey, can I pray with you?" He goes, "Well, I can't see anything," because both of his eyes were shut. And he was like, "I can't see anything, so I guess so." All right.
You probably should have spit.
Get the mud and the spit.
We got something for that.
Yeah. Had his little Saul moment.
Yeah, for real.
And then I went after I saw him backstage, and he was sitting down. His wife was standing next to him. Both eyes were completely swollen shut. And I'm like, what do I say? I could just walk by, and he's not going to know it's me. But his wife does. I don't want to just walk by some, a jerk, and sound like a jerk. So I went over to say good fight again, and Ollie says, I can't see anything. I said, sorry about that.
Yeah. Sorry, not sorry.
Yeah. I mean, it's part of the deal.
100%.
Well, let's shift gears a little bit. I know on top of, you've got a lot going on, you know, on top of your gym, real estate, you got the kids, you want to tell us a little bit about your kids and your family a little bit here?
Yeah.
And the animals.
Oh, gosh. My wife is a nut job and just keeps getting animals for us. But no, we've got a 2-year-old that she just recently turned 2. She's awesome. Tons of fun. My wife and I mean, you guys have all known us way before we had a daughter, and we are not the kind of people that should have a kid probably. But we kind of took the route of crackheads keep their babies alive. We can do it.
We can do it.
And
That's right.
it's just been a ton of fun, you know, and especially at this age at 2, everything's so much fun.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, I always joke around. I think there's 2 people that Penelope likes more than me and Lindsay, and that's Cooper and then our buddy Corey. But I mean, all the time she just be like, I want to see Cooper. I want to see Cooper. Like, well, he's on a fish truck right now, so you can't, but always asking to see Cooper. And then we have 2 horse, or my wife has a horse, I have a mule, and we have 2 dogs, and things weren't complicated enough, so Lindsay got 4 chickens, and it's always animals everywhere.
Yeah, we've got chickens and a dog. That's it.
We just got the dog, thank God.
Well, you have a horse.
Yeah, he is a miniature Shetland pony. Yeah.
That's a big dog.
Yeah. It's like having a little grizzly bear run around your house. He also thinks he's the size of a chihuahua. You should see him lay on a rock.
Well, we do have a gift, and we're not anywhere near done. We want to get into some things, but we did want to get you a gift, and it's a very manly bag there. But just to kind of say thank you for being on the podcast with us. And so another thing you like to do is you like to go fishing,
That
right?
is one of my favorite things. And this is awesome. Thank you guys so much. This is especially this. I'm always running out of this.
Yeah. I should have got more. I was going to get
This is
multiple.
awesome. Let me go through all this. I know we're sitting on
Yeah, no, absolutely.
This is all stuff
So this
that I'm
is
definitely going to use.
For those of you who maybe aren't familiar, this is like ocean bottom fishing gear,
Yeah.
some grouper gear, and then stuff you can jig for other stuff as well.
Yeah.
So
This is great. Big hooks, because my buddy Corey that I go fishing with all the time, he's always arguing with me, telling me I don't use big enough hooks.
yeah,
So
yeah,
that's perfect.
and shout out to Blue Water Candy. That's a local company. So
Oh, is
that
it?
makes those? Yeah,
I didn't even know that.
yeah, they're in North Carolina.
That's cool. Awesome.
In
Thank
fact,
you
I
guys
think
so
they
much.
have. I think they have a warehouse either here in Hampstead or Holly Ridge that just opened up.
Yeah.
But it's just a warehouse. It's not a
Yeah.
retail store, but they've got some good gear.
It's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, man, absolutely. Well, let's get into the meat of really what we're here for. You know, on the Ground Zero podcast, you know, we've got some main goals, some main things that we feel like the Lord has called us to. One thing that was on my heart was just legacy. Thinking about my family and friends, that it'd be good to have something that they would be able to connect with me on when I'm gone, you know, at some point in life. And also, I'm personally, I don't know about you guys, I'm not always the best at, relaying kind of my deep thoughts and feelings with people that I care about. So I thought, this is a good way to do that, people can get to know us better, and deeper and get deeper in a relationship. Another thing is to, through our testimonies, just shine the light of Christ and kind of bring real life to, our testimony is really our best evangelistic tool that we have, because people can relate to real life, and we all have one. We all have scenarios and circumstances that led to us coming to the Lord. We've all had our obstacles and our challenges. So Cooper and I have spent a lot of time in the season 1 sharing our testimony, and we're looking forward to getting some of that from you here. Another thing we want to do is help people who struggle with addiction really have hope. Give hope to them that you can be set free. So that's an important thing. And then the other main thing that I dive into from time to time is the authentic church and what it really looks like for the church in her most authentic state. But anyways, what we'd like to do today is kind of give you some opportunity to share maybe a little bit of your life and some stories before coming to the Lord, before coming to Christ, and kind of what got you to that point.
You're gonna be real bored.
That's okay.
I can't remember who it was. There's a Christian comedian I used to listen to, and he was talking about grew up in the church, got saved really young, and he said people would get up on stage and give their testimony and be like, I was a drug addict, I dealt drugs, I beat women, and I came to Christ. And it's like, oh man, if I could have done that, that would have been a good testimony. And I always kind of thought, well, that's me. I grew up going to church.
Sure.
I mean, I grew up in Alabama, so the heart of the Bible Belt.
Right.
I had great family that took me to church. And when as a kid, you go to church, you hear, especially when you're young, I'm like, yeah, I know Jesus loves me, this and. But then when I was 7, and this I remember very vividly, my mom explaining that just because you know who Jesus is, that doesn't make you a Christian.
Right.
Kind of, explained everything. And so then me and my mom sat down and prayed, and that's when I accepted Jesus, But it was really weird to me for, I'd say, most of my life because there was not really a change, because I was 7 years old. There's no, I wasn't out, doing illegal things or living life a certain way. She just kept going to church and kept doing everything. So I remember I would drive my mom nuts. And I'd be like, I don't know if I'm saved. Like, am I saved? Nothing's different, And so I know that drove her nuts for years. And then as I got older and, I believe maybe not salvation, but redemption is a process, right? Like understanding more and more as you go. So then as I got older, reading the Bible more and everything, then, it made sense to me that, okay, I didn't feel a huge change because I was 7 years old and I was going to church already and everything was already that. So as I've, grown and reading the Bible all the time, just understanding more and more of, okay, this is how I should be living. This is what I should be doing more. I think it's just, that's been, I'd say, the biggest process of my life is every time I read through the Bible, however long it takes me to read through the Bible, there's always stuff that I'm like, I know I've read this multiple times, but I don't ever remember this, and sure. I know one thing I always heard people say and was, God doesn't say you can't say curse words, and I don't know where people get that, but then like when I was in college, like reading that, talking about not using harsh language and stuff like that. I'm like, well, why did I ever think that was something that would be okay, And so that I feel like I stopped then. I was like, I'm not ever going to say any cuss words again. There's no reason to. It's not going to better my life, anything like that. And I feel like that is probably like the biggest, as dumb as it is, the biggest testimony to people, because after they're around you for a little bit, they find out you don't cuss. And then when they do, they're like, oh, I'm sorry. And I'm like, I don't even know you knew that I didn't. You think it's just something I omit so you wouldn't notice, but people really notice it. And Lindsay always tells people when they say that I'm nice, like, you think he's nice because he doesn't cuss. He's still a jerk.
Nice. That's what I tell people too. I actually say that to you quite a bit. And he doesn't cuss, folks. I promise I have tried. even in moments where anybody would have completely lost their mind, it is dang it, gosh. Yeah, that is a huge testament to you and who you are. Like when you said you would never do it again, you haven't.
Yeah. Our neighbor, when we lived in Nashville, she was asking me about it. And I was like, well, when I read that, I realized it doesn't make my life better, doesn't help anything, and I shouldn't be doing it. She goes, what a logical way to think.
Yeah.
Well, I think thinking should be logical, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, so I just I stopped in, and I think it's been as dumb as it sounds, the biggest part of just witnessing to people and sure. Being different is that. It's just crazy that really catches people's attention,
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Well, what about, so you kind of grew up in the church, and I would say like your testimony isn't Yeah, I mean, I get the whole boring thing. I get it. But like, for instance, like my sister and I, Mariah's behind the scenes today. So, so we had like it's weird to me. We had a very different upbringing, but then like we turned out kind of similar. Like it's kind of weird, cause I always picked on my parents when she was younger. I'm like, the household she grew up in is completely different than one I grew up in, but we're 14 years apart. And so there's just, my parents were in a different phase of life. I grew up in the poor phase. She's about to lose her drink. I grew up in we're just trying to come up and make it. We lived in the trailer park, we didn't have much money. You didn't go out to eat, it was a little bit different. Mariah grew up a little bit differently. Not that my parents are wealthy, but it was a little bit different. But I love my parents and they taught us both to work. They taught us both. Well, I guess the main thing about the difference between us though was I didn't grow up in the church at all. My dad was an atheist when I was growing up, and we got saved when I was 14. We got saved in the same summer. So she only grew up in a Christian home. By the time she was born, because we're 14 years apart. So about the time we got saved was close to when she was probably about 6 months before she was born, 5 months before she was born, we got saved. And so she's only grown up in a Christian home. But her testimony would kind of maybe feel a little bit like that. Like she'd say she doesn't have like some crazy events or anything. She knew the Lord young and early. But there's beauty in that, that's beautiful too. And we don't all have to have Cooper's story,
Not everybody needs to get baptized and rededicate their life in rehab. We get it. Thanks.
But for real though, like there's so many people out there who, they don't have this, climactic things that have happened in their life. And then there are those that have. And God's there for all of us.
Yeah.
That's what's beautiful. God's there for all of us in whatever way we came up, no matter what situation we find ourselves in. But I think that we all have probably had some times where our faith was really challenged. And is there something in your life maybe that sticks out where you really had some tough obstacles and challenges that you really had to dig in?
I don't know if like my faith. Well, I'll say one thing that I always hated is, especially when I was in the youth group in like middle school, high school, and even in college groups, like people come in and they would speak, and then like, if you don't remember the time of day, the date, the month, all that, then it wasn't life changing and it wasn't real salvation. Right. I can't tell you how many times I heard people say that, and that really bothered me, and I'm like, maybe I wasn't, but then as an adult, I'm like, 7 years old. Why would I remember all that, But I would say the biggest thing is not necessarily challenges towards my faith, but because I kind of went to college prepared, like they're going to challenge my faith, they're going to challenge my worldview, but I would say just like the really hard times in life, like I think for me it's been very beneficial to just lean on my faith, sure. And that's what's really helped me a lot. My freshman year of college, my college wrestling coach, he was Catholic, but he took us into a church and he sat down and he talked to us. He's like, we're getting ready to go to nationals. This is going to be the biggest tournament of your entire life. Nothing's ever going to feel like this. And this is when, the nerves, everything, like we need faith to lean on. He's like, you don't have to have my faith. You don't have to have that. He's like, but faith in something is what you need right now to lean on to help you through this. And I kind of took that as, I realized like, okay, that is when I have those feelings of I'm not going to make it through this, I'm not going to do this, I'm not going to be successful. Like, just lean on my faith because, is it really the end of the world if I go lose a wrestling match? Right, I've still got my salvation, so I would say that's where it's really been like the strongest thing for me is through all just the hard work, the times. And I remember one time we were in California and I couldn't get fights. It was like, just no matter what I did, I couldn't get fights. And I was so stressed for probably like a month and a half. And then one day it just hit me. I'm like, why am I stressed? Like, I'm just going to, I sat down and I prayed. I was like, God, I want to put this in your hands. I know that you're going to make something work out somehow or another. and just want to put this in your hands. And that kind of just such a relief, like all of a sudden, like all that weight off my shoulders, you know? So I wouldn't say necessarily my faith being challenged, but just the times when I realized like, hey, I'm not leaning on my faith right now like I should, you know?
Sure. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think as far as leaning on your faith and you just being a pillar from the entire time that I've known you, like, and I hate to bring it up, but after the title fight, after the Musasi fight and the loss, you know, we were all there and like you had your moment, but then you were willing to come out and sit and have dinner and sit there and be with everybody that came out there. And that just, to me, that spoke a lot of volumes about you and your character, because a lesser man would have gone and sat in the shower and not wanted to see anybody, and you came right out there and sat down with everybody, and we ended up having a pretty decent time. But just to handle one of the tough moments of your life, and then just to come right out there and be willing to sit and have a good time with everybody in that moment, just to me, I was just like, I could in that moment I couldn't have had more respect for you already because I know you and I know your character. But in that moment, I was just like, you're the real deal, man. And like,
well, I appreciate that, and you know, you guys coming up there made meant so much, you know. And that was one of those things, like, I lost, and I remember walking, you know, we were down below the arena after getting stitched up, and I was with Lindsay, and you know, that's one of those where you're just kind of falling apart, you know.
Yeah.
And it was so much like, okay, you know, my entire life has been to get to this moment, and I didn't succeed. And then I'm like, you know, I remember telling Lindsay, I was like, we have a daughter that one day is going to watch that fight, you know, and that hurts. But then we got up there, got back up to the casino floor, and I started seeing like how many people from North Carolina had come up, you know, and then I had so many of my college teammates were there. And, you know, I mean, I went to college in Missouri and we were fighting in Connecticut. So I had a handful of college teammates there. Like one of my college teammates from Washington State was there, you know, and so I went, I kind of had my shower, kind of fell apart from it, and I was like, all these people are here to support me. Like, this is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
And I'm never going to have all these people in a room together again anyway. Like, I got to get down there. I got to have a good time with them. You know? I'm like, I know when I lay down to sleep tonight, I'm not going to sleep because I'm going to think about the fight, but we got too many fun people here to not go have a good time with them.
Yeah. And I think, and what's cool to me is like, me and you started being friends right after the Halsey fight. Mm-hmm. So up until that point, I had never seen you lose. Yeah. And like that, like to me, you find somebody's true character when their back's up against the wall and they're going through some turmoil. So I had never seen you in that atmosphere, and just to watch your perseverance and how you handled that whole thing, man, that was nothing but respect, dude.
Well, I appreciate that.
Yeah, brother. Yeah.
You know what I think gives you room to be able to operate that way. It's neat that you bring that up like that, because one of the things that we've been talking about on the podcast when it comes to the church is how, you know, the most authentic version of the church is a family. You know, it's the family of God, and how important it is to like be so committed to relationships that you build these deep relationships that people become your tribe. Mm-hmm. You know, and you had a tribe that was with you that if you did not have those relationships and you weren't who you were, you know, you could have gone into a dark place, into a hole, mm-hmm. and whatever. But because you have this tribe, this family of people that have come with you to support you, no matter what happens, you come back to that tribe. They're going to love you. Mm-hmm. They're going to be there for you no matter what. And like, that's what we want to see in the church. You know, mm-hmm. we want to see those deep relationships. We want to see us, like the Bible says, confessing our sin one to another, that, you know, that we can be forgiven, that we can be healed, you know, that we come to brothers about problems that we're having. We work through them together, that, you know, we have those Pauls in our life that we can go to as, you know, mentors or spiritual fathers. And we have those Timothys in our lives that we're looking out for, that we want the best for, that we want to see them go and be everything that God's made them and called them to be. So I'd imagine, like, in this part of your journey in the tribe, like you talked about before, you know, retiring, you're able to get to this place where you can cheer some other people on, and you can be in their corner more and mm-hmm. dedicate to that. So what does that look like here? We've got a visitor.
Hey, sit down. Sit.
That's
He likes
perfect.
to be on TV.
There's part of the tribe right there.
Yeah, that's right.
That's fine. But so what do you look forward to the most about that phase of the journey?
I think, I've always been very competitive. So to be able to take that competitive nature and put into the gym and the guys that are competing there, it's been it's been great. I'm enjoying that. So I don't have to give up that competing part. I think that's the hardest thing people have walking away from sports is, okay, I'm not competing anymore. But now I can focus that on other people's fights, other people's jiu-jitsu matches, and just on the gym in general and keeping it in a good spot. I have so many of the pro fighters and amateur fighters at the gym. They'll say, "Did you see my sparring rounds today? Did you see anything I need to change?" I'm like, "No, I was sparring. I sparred 5 rounds today. I didn't see your sparring rounds."
Sure.
But now I don't have to do that. I do my sparring rounds to help other people, and then we can talk about what they need to work on. And then when I'm not sparring, I'm able to watch all the other guys. I think that's been great, and I'm actually giving to those guys what I should have been giving to them the whole time.
Yeah. Well, I think that up to this point, you've been given a lot of inspiration, just in your path and your career. And there's just a shift now. There's a shift where you can focus that a little differently.
Yeah. Everybody in the world knows who Baby Hulk is,
Yeah, that's
David
right.
Wilson. And, it's great because you give him something to work on, he's going to work on it. And he's the one I probably a lot of times ask, "Did you see me spar today?" I'm like, "I didn't see it. I'll try to get it next time." And then next time I'll get it next time. So it's great now. Twice a week I'm able to sit down and watch him spar. I can actually hold pads for him and work on that and talk about what we need to fix and work on. So that's a guy that's a lot of fun to work with. So I'm glad that I can really watch his.
He's definitely a character too.
Oh my goodness!
I tell you
character.
what's so funny about him is one of my best friends lives in Colorado, and he sent me. I don't know if I've told you this or not. He sent me a video, and he was like, "Do you know this guy?" Because he said Salty Dog Jiu-Jitsu, and I was like, "Wait, what?" And I was like, "Yeah, that's Baby Hulk. I see him 3 or 4 times a week, dude." And he was just like, "No way, you know him." I'm like, "Oh my gosh, that is so funny." Because what's even funnier is hearing Jamie Pickett, who fights in the UFC, talk about he was out and about with Baby Hulk, and everybody recognized Baby Hulk and not Jamie.
Yeah.
And it's hilarious, man. And so I got the opportunity to FaceTime Jake with Baby Hulk, and Jake was just
funny.
over the moon about it. And I was just like, if you only knew the abuse that this poor guy takes from the gym. That's what I told him. I was like, man, he gets ragged on more than anybody, but he is such a good sport and such an awesome guy.
Oh
man.
yeah.
Oh, that's great, man.
He is. He brightens the gym when he's in
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, and then he asked me about the whole what is it called that for some reason it's slipping my mind where he fights at the backyard thing.
Oh my gosh, Satan's backyard.
Yeah, that's
I've watched the videos. Yeah.
Street Beefs.
Street Beefs.
Yeah.
Yes. And he was like, "What do you think that's like?" I was like, "I can assure you that everything you see on camera and if whatever you would imagine, that is the truth because that is exactly what he's told me. It is literally in someone's backyard in Virginia."
You mean, what is it like fighting in a cattle pen?
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
In dirt?
Yeah,
Hey, that's how Kimbo Slice got. That's how he came up.
Man, got what's his name too? Game Bred. Jorge Masvidal fought. fought
Oh,
Kimbo.
that's right. Yeah.
That's where it's at. That's where you need to go.
No,
Cooper.
absolutely
Yeah,
not.
right.
I have no desire to fight whatsoever.
Come on, man.
See, like that's the funny thing, right? As you grow up and you like watch fights on the UFC and you're just Joe Blow, you're like, oh man, I could do that. And then you like, I think one of my friends told me, he's like, if you think you can do that, try hitting a punching bag for more than a minute. Oh,
Right.
and I tried. I was about 19 years old then, and I was like, this is not working. and then even fast forward to how I got into jiu-jitsu. I was a powerlifter professionally, and Salter grabbed a hold of me, and I'm sure you'd been wanting to do this for a really long time, ever since we had been friends, and like I felt really good because you shot in and I popped up pretty good. And I was like, I might be able to do this. And then you grabbed me around the waist and I reached down and I picked you up for a split second and you squeezed all the breath right out of me. And I was just like, this is how I'm going to die. and the same thing you were talking about, you said 45 seconds. I think it was 15 for me. I had the real long hair then, your favorite.
Oh,
and actually it came out of my sweet man bun. and it went right down my throat. Shortly thereafter, I cut my hair. I was like, this is no longer
that
functional.
was a divine appointment,
dude. And just a shut up, just a testament to guys that grapple and that wrestle and fight in MMA. Like I was at that point, I was deadlifting over 700 pounds. And when I locked onto you, I was like, I have made a mistake. Cause like cause I've told the story on the podcast before. The first time I ever met you, you walked in the gym dragging a big grappling dummy, and it just looked so painful. And then I watched you lift, and I was just like, he looks like he hurts all the time. And I think at that point you were having some pain. But then when you dragged me out there, I was like, I might be able to do this in my stupid brain. And then you grabbed a hold of me, and I was like, this is not going anywhere but bad. This is horrible.
I think that's everyone's first experience with jiu-jitsu, I would think.
And then what's wild about it though is you grow up competing in any sort of sport or anything like that, you think it's bad in that. Well, you go one-on-one with another man, and then like obviously it never really goes that well when me and Salter grapple. But like that competitive edge comes out, and then it just becomes this love of your life in jiu-jitsu. Like that's probably the coolest thing. And I always heard you talk about it before I started, about how much people love it. And then like to experience that myself, and now to watch like when guys come in and we get to go with the guys that are there on their first day, and like you see them get the brakes beat off of them, and they're exhausted, borderline going to throw up, and they're like, I'll be back tomorrow.
Yeah.
And like I've never experienced anything like that in my life, where you just get absolutely demolished, and you're like, this is the best thing ever. Anything I would have ever done in life that I was that bad at, no way I would have ever signed back up for it.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's just a true testament to how cool.
I mean, I went to the class one. I went to jiu-jitsu once.
You did
one time.
Where was the light in your eyes?
There was none.
It got squeezed out.
There was no light. And look, I didn't go in there having any anticipation of doing anything well, because I played basketball growing up. I didn't even wrestle or anything, so I was an absolute fish out of water. But I found out that I walked into the gym that has all of the killers in it. You know, like this is a bunch of killers. And I rolled with one guy for, I mean, what, you do like 3-minute little rounds. Yeah. And I about had a panic attack. No joke. Yeah. I literally about had a panic attack. And then I made the mistake. I thought I did something cool. The only thing I knew to do, I grabbed the guy and kind of like threw him down. And then because then I started thinking about jiu-jitsu for a couple weeks, and I'm looking up, and they're like, mistakes beginners make. Don't body slam anybody. Don't be that guy. And I'm like, I was that guy. I mean, that sucks. I was that guy. I thought I did something cool. Like, I know you can hurt somebody.
It's funny when you get people that are like athletes coming in. I always tell them, like, the beginning, like, hey, we're going to go live. You don't have to go live. If you want to go live, let's, do a round. I'm going to put you with somebody that's going to take care of you, help you out, and do a round, then watch around. Then you can do a round, watch around. And they get so pumped, because you get that first round in. It's fun. Like, I'm ready to do the next one. Like, I'm always, you sure? Like,
right. No,
I'm going to do the next one. Like, okay. And then they want to do the next one. And they're like 3 rounds in, and they have that big lactic acid dump from the muscles. And then they're miserable. They're throwing up. Like, I tried to stop you from doing that. But, that's one that gets people a lot, because they start having fun, and then they just want to keep going.
Well, so probably the second roll with the guy, he subbed me once. Of course, I posted my hand up and grabbed it and Kimured me behind my, But then the second time, he's like on top of me, and I'm just like panicking. I'm losing my breath, and I'm like tapping out. And he's like, I didn't even do nothing to you. I got to go to the bathroom. I'm sorry. Yeah. And I had to go in there and like breathe. That's what I said. I was about to have a panic attack.
Oh yeah. I made the mistake of, I think that the first Saturday class I ever went to, because like you would roll with me and kind of let me do my thing, and then like I think I rolled with Mark. He was a brown belt, and now he lives in I think he's back in awesome guy. Everybody would, to the point of like I was like, oh, I'm not really that bad at this. Well, then I rolled with Justin for the first time, and you, obviously nobody's going to get a visual representation of that dude. He is huge and has been a lineman in most of his life. Probably came out of the womb doing power line work. And he's about my size, probably about 40 pounds heavier than me. He ate my lunch, and I made the mistake of drinking a protein shake before I rolled that morning. That is the one and only time I've thrown up at jiu-jitsu, and now I go in there just drinking water, almost completely empty stomach, because I was like, I will never go through that again. It was so bad. He gave me a black eye. I puked. It was It was tough, man.
If you want to come into the gym, you do not have to roll with Justin.
Yeah. Gosh, dude. And I think what else is so cool about that community is the people that like you get to meet, and especially being at that and you've done a phenomenal job with the gym, and obviously like your accolades speak for themselves, and so guys want to come in and train. But like guys like Denzel, who was an Olympic alternate and now is training he's at the Olympic Center, right?
Olympic Training Center
and
now.
it was one of my main training partners when he come on Saturdays, and that dude is nothing but a problem. And just like you get to meet all these people that have done so much, and they want to come into John's gym and roll, man. To me that's so cool.
Yeah.
It is a fun group of guys, and you get kind of guys from all walk of life. You got we're just joking around about Andrew, who's a really good purple belt, but you got a guy he's an attorney, and he's rolling with Jamie Pickett, who's in the UFC, and they're having good goes. It's cool seeing the where everybody comes from, and then how good guys get that you're like, wow, I wouldn't, if you didn't know any better, you wouldn't think that a guy in the UFC is grappling with a guy who's an attorney and they're having a good match,
Yeah. And I think that's what's cool about the culture at your gym is kind of like, because I watch some people that come train from other gyms, and I'm not talking trash about other gyms, but like guys that come in, it's like either you're gonna get better with us, or you're gonna go train somewhere else. Because I feel like you kind of get thrown directly into the fire when you come train at the gym, because like you got guys that are good, and everybody's gonna push each other. Is I guess really what I'm trying to say, not getting thrown into the fire. Like everybody pushes each other so hard. And man, it's such a good time to watch guys just get like really, really good, really, really fast.
Yeah. So. Well, I guess let's start to bring this thing to an end. I know everybody's enjoying it. I'm having a good time. Could be here all day, but
right.
Let's kind of bring this to an end. John, you want to just share maybe about your gym or anything you got going on you want to let people know about?
Yeah, it's Port City MMA and Fitness is our official name, but it's the home of Salty Dog Jiu-Jitsu. People probably know the Tucker getting thrown and screaming.
That's
from that.
Right.
Yeah, that's where most people know about anything that we've ever done.
From that YouTube video.
Yeah. We got about 10 of those YouTube videos that went viral, and so everybody knows about that. But yeah, so come check us out. You don't have to get thrown into rolling with Cooper and Justin right away. We do have fundamental classes to save you from that. But it is a fun time. Jiu-Jitsu is very addictive. Everybody that does it for more than a couple of times, you just want to be there and you want to get better because there's so much to learn from,
And you have offerings for the whole family, don't you?
Oh, yeah. We have kids classes. We have adult classes. We have we have a lot of like husbands and wives that train together.
Yeah.
But then we've got a couple of full families where it's husband, wife, and 2 kids. It's cool to see that.
Yeah. That's awesome.
The whole family can come to the gym, and it's nice because I'll see like the kids will train in the kids class, and the parents will stay for the adult class, and the kids are out playing in the lobby, and they'll hang out with Penelope. Penelope loves that. So it's a cool thing. It's great when the family can do something together, and everybody enjoys it.
Awesome.
Yeah. And just to speak on like the gym too, like from a recovery standpoint, and like being in there with like-minded people too, you don't have like riffraff, you don't have like, you're just around a good core of especially good Christian men, and that you just don't have to worry about what the guys are doing outside of there. It's just an awesome group.
Well, maybe just for a moment, why don't you speak on that about how good jiu-jitsu has been for you? Being a person who's recovered from drugs, how good it's been for you.
Well, it's just it almost feels like a second home, and it's got like the benefits of it's something I can get into and I can push myself, and like you don't want to get like crazy hokey about like the whole of the martial arts and the centers. You will, it really does, because you go in there and you work so hard. And just something about being able to pour that much sweat and to be out there especially with men that are like your brothers, because like you sweat and bleed with guys for long enough, like that is now your family.
Yeah.
And so you have that sense of community too, and that extra level of accountability, right? Like guys don't see at the gym, like even with anything you've got going on, they're like, well man, where you been?
Yeah.
And like it's just somewhere too with that group, it's like you always want to be there. Whether like the hardest part is like, let's say you get injured or you get sick or something like that. You're just like, gosh, I just wish I was there just to be around them.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just that next level of community, especially being at Salters with such a great group of men too, and that just is a testament to like iron sharpens iron.
Sure.
You know, because you have a whole another group of guys that are going to hold you accountable, and they want to have lunch with you. They want to sit down, like people that genuinely care about your well-being. Doesn't show when you roll with them. Right. Because like Weisenhunt, like Zach, like we can try to kill each other for 5 minutes straight, and then like next thing you know, he's like, hey man, I love you. Like, let's go have lunch.
Yeah.
You know, and like with John, like I get the great opportunity. Like we hang out just about every Saturday night, and it's community, man, and it's good, strong community that really just that kind of stuff will just carry you throughout the week.
Yeah.
And just another level of accountability.
I think I always make this joke, but I think it's the realest thing ever is when, you know, because a lot of people say, I've never really found any camaraderie since I played sports in high school.
Yes,
yes. And it's hard to find. And I always tell people there's nothing that gets you as close to somebody as sweating in each other's face.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
And as dumb as that sounds. And my mother-in-law, it always kind of chokes her up because she's like, the fact that you and your friends, when you guys see each other, you hug each other and tell each other you love each other. She's like, you don't see that in men, you know, very often.
Yeah.
That's good.
You know, I think an aspect of that is like the Christian nature of, you know, I need to let you know I love you. But the other thing is like, if me and Cooper are sweating in each other's face for 5 minutes, not a big deal for me to hug him and tell him I love him.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. And so it's, I think that really kind of changes just your relationship with people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, John, thank you so much. Did you have something else you want?
No.
Okay. I want to thank you, man. You know, we asked you a while back about possibly doing this. You're all about it. Just you were training at the time for your last fight. And but that's perfect. This is going to be our launch episode for season 2.
Nice.
So, man, just thank you so much for opening up your house to us. We appreciate you so much, man.
Well, thank you guys, and I appreciate you coming here and making it easy with a toddler with pink eyes.
Yeah, that's all good.
Run all over the world with her.
That's right. That's right. Well, let's close up in prayer. If that's
awesome.
cool.
Yeah.
All right. God, I thank you so much for your goodness first, God. Just how good you are to us, Lord, and that you give us these opportunities to grow relationships with other people, God, and that it'll help us grow deeper in relationship with you as well. Lord, I thank you for John Salter and for Lindsay and for his family, God. I thank you for Cooper and Mariah here, but Lord, we just ask that you bless John and his family, God, in a mighty way. Father, you see the things that they have their hands on, all of the different things that they're busy with. And God, I just ask that you bless everything their hands touch. Lord, put angels around this household and just, God, guard them. Lord, they're special people. Lord, I pray that you give them even more influence, Father. Lord, as they shine your light, you say that if we lift you high, that you'll draw all men unto you. So, Lord, as they shine the light of Christ, God, I just ask that you continue to draw people, Father, that can be impacted by that. Most of all, God, we just thank you for how good you are again. And Lord, we thank you for the podcast. And I hope and pray that that this reaches people who need to hear things that have been said today. God, we thank you for it. We praise you in Jesus' name. Amen and amen. Thank you, guys.
For more information about the ministry of Ground Zero, go to our website at groundzeronc.com. To contact us, email us at info@groundzeronc.com.